Welcome into Growth Profits, a show that comes to you every single week just outside Nashville, Tennessee, talking about strategies for you to improve your business. Today we're going to talk about the number one, not number two.
No, number
Number three. The number one reason why you suck at sales. Stay with us. Hi folks, I'm Sean Crabtree.
And I'm Cameron Bailey.
We don't want to change the way you do business.
We want to change the way you're thinking about your business.
We want you to have better results, happier clients, and make more money.
Let's get it started.
And welcome back to Growth Profits, the show, the podcast that comes to you weekly about best strategies when it comes to growing your business. Now, today we're going to talk about the number one reason why you suck at sales. Now, this comes from, we actually, Cameron and I did a podcast, I guess about a year ago, about why you suck at sales. And honestly, there's so much to it that we might make this a series.
Yeah.
There's so many reasons that we've come across over the last 20 years why people are really sort of sucking at sales. We're going to start breaking it down and doing a show on each of the reasons that we've discovered in working with entrepreneurial business for 20 plus years all over North America and Western Canada and the Caribbean.
The number one reason that you suck at sales.
And so today we're going to talk about the number one reason.
I think the original,
this is fresh on our mind because we just experienced this.
We experienced somebody that sucks at sales. Nah, surely not.
But we just experienced the number one reason.
Oh.
And that's what this is about. The number one reason. We want to give you ammunition to get past the number one reason why you suck at sales. And what's the big takeaway? What's the number one reason? Cameron Bailey, what's the number one reason?
The number one reason you're sucking at sales is
By
because
far.
you're the one that's making a big deal out of the money. You're the one making a big deal out of the money. Everybody says, oh, my patient can't afford it. My client can't afford it. You're the one making a big deal about the money. And today we're going to talk about 3 steps that can help you get your mind right so that you don't make a big deal out of the money.
But before we talk about the steps, though, you've got to see the truth in what Cameron's saying here, okay? You're making it a big deal. We have run into this how many hundreds of times?
Thousands of times
over the last 20
and
plus
everybody
years.
thinks in every industry, everybody thinks my industry is different. If I sell insurance, or if I sell houses, or if I'm in healthcare,
HVAC,
if I sell
healthcare, dentistry,
if I have a fence company, whatever it is, or if I have a lawn and landscape company, whatever it is, everybody thinks my industry is different, and maybe people can't afford my services or my product. Look, you're the one making a big deal out of it.
So we were just recently in a dental office. I did a little video about this the other day, just a little quick one. We were recently, this group had reached out to us for help, and it was interesting because one of the things that she said is, we watch a lot of your stuff on social media and stuff, and I understand, Sean, it's all about value. It's value. But here's the thing. She said, in our area, we're the exception because our whole demographic is all concerned about money. It's the most important thing. They're all concerned about money. Well, here's the interesting thing. When we went in and did the observation, at every single stage, in every process, what we found is the team is talking money. The team is bringing up the subject matter. The team is making money a hurdle at every possible step. And we found that same scenario how many times and how many different kinds of service businesses?
All the time, man. I mean, if you're the one that says, hey, this is expensive, then what do you think your customer's going to say? Damn, it's expensive.
That's what we heard, right? Now listen, this is going to be a lot of money, so I know you're not ready to make this decision today. You're going to want to go talk about it. Or, I know you're going to want to see what your insurance covers. Whatever they're going to say, right? Listen, you've got to get that out of the way. The number one reason that you suck at sales is you're the one making a big deal about the money.
So how do we overcome it, Sean Crabtree? How do we overcome this mindset of me making a big deal about the paper, the dollars, the moolah.
And not just me, right? The
That's
people
right.
on my team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoever else is on my team is making a big deal out of it.
In order to be in business, you got to make money. You got to make money, right? Or else it's a hobby. Hobbies don't get you paid.
And the number one reason you suck at sales is because you're making a big deal about the money. So how do you get over it? Here's the number one thing, and it is the most important one that we can talk about. The number one way that you get past this is you got to convince yourself of the truth. And
Can we get like some church music? I think we need some church music because the truth is about to come out. Let that truth free. Let it go.
I am the pastor of the Church of the Painful Truth.
Oh, drop it.
And here is the painful truth. And you got to convince yourself of this. No, this is the way my professor at that great bastion of business university at Middle Tennessee State University, here's what he said. Nobody on earth that you have ever known or ever will know, including yourself, has ever or will ever buy anything based strictly on price. Let that one wash over you. Now think about it. So seriously, and this was tough, and I have to admit, for me, if you're listening to this, I don't know if this is tough for you. For me, this was a tough one. When I was a really young guy, especially in college, this was a tough one for me. Here's what he said. Nobody on earth that you ever have known or ever will know, including yourself, has ever or will ever buy anything based strictly on price. Instead, and that class was called Consumer Buying Behavior. Buying behavior of the consumer, I think. Something like that. I was into the class. But that was a few years ago. So you got to convince yourself of the truth. You can't listen to Cameron and I talk about this and going, okay, philosophically that's true, and then jump back into it and not believe it yourself. You've got to convince yourself of this. Now, for me, the first time I heard this, I thought it was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I thought everybody made all decisions based on price. I thought that price was a really big deal, but you know what? I think when I got out of college and I got the real education, I learned that it's actually true. Nobody buys anything based on price. Do this. If you're driving down the road right now, here's what I want you to do. Picture one thing that you are convinced that you bought strictly because of what it cost. And whatever that thing is, I bet you that Cameron and I could show you that you didn't buy it based on price. You bought it the way every single one of us buys everything.
Value, man.
Based on value.
We don't buy anything based on price. But what do we justify it on? Right? We buy things based on value, but we justify things on price.
So if you can think of that thing as you're driving down the road, so listen, you're convinced.
I'll give you an example. Great example. Okay.
Let me finish this analogy.
Tell it.
If you're driving down the road and you're thinking of that one thing that you're convinced you bought strictly because of what it costs. Okay. Pair of shoes. I had somebody tell me this one time. I bought a pair of shoes. Why'd you buy a pair of shoes? Because they were $5. Okay, now wait a minute. Did you really buy the shoes because the price was $5? Or did you buy those shoes because you perceived that there was value there that outweighed $5? May sound like a small distinction, but it's huge. And if you're in a service business, and everybody who's listening and watching this is in a service business, you got to convince yourself of the truth. Because the number one reason you suck at sales is because you're making a big deal of the money.
Exactly.
Go ahead with your story.
My story was, you got to convince yourself of the truth. Nobody buys anything based on price. Here's a story.
What's the story?
I have an entrepreneur that I know personally that purchased recently a new piece of equipment, a work truck. He's in a service business where he provides service for home care and landscaping, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
He purchased a work truck, right? Now, this truck is built for
work.
Okay. So locally, they have a rebate option for work trucks where he could save, say, $7,000 or whatever it was on a new truck.
Okay, right.
So he bought a Denali
work truck.
Now, I don't know if you guys have Google.
Not a Ford.
No, so I don't know if you guys have Google on your phone or whatever, but you can Google Denali work truck and it don't exist. Okay? You have to buy a Denali truck
and then convert it
to a work truck. So why did we buy a Denali, GMC Denali HD truck and then convert it into a work truck? Because of
it ain't because of the price.
What do you think? What do you think the justification is, though? But I saved $7,000.
Right.
I saved $7,000 or whatever the number is. I saved this money.
But the point is, you could have bought a Ford truck already converted for less money.
You could have bought 15 work trucks for the price of one Denali. He could have outfitted the whole team, the whole squad, for the price of one Denali work truck. But we always,
so he bought based on value. But then if you ask him, "Oh, I like your work truck,"
got a great deal.
Got a good deal.
Got a good deal. Where did you get a Denali? This is the question. Where did you find a Denali work truck? Oh, yeah, you got a good deal. You can't find that. You got to make that. So the moral of the story, and I love this guy to death. He's a great guy, and the moral of the story is, in America, we buy exactly what we see value in. Period. But we justify it based on price.
Yeah, and you got to convince yourself of that.
Doesn't matter if it's watches. Doesn't matter what kind of watch you got on.
Cars, clothes.
What kind of watch you got on?
I got a good deal.
Oh, yeah. I got a good deal on that watch.
I did get a good deal.
Yeah, you could have bought 45 Timexes. you could have brought about 450 Timexes by the price of that watch.
But I see value.
Yeah, you see value.
I see value in the Rolex.
Okay, so
the question is, what do you need to do to convince yourself of this? I mean, if the stories we're telling are not ringing true for you, then you've got to go dig and you got to go do the research. Find anything on sales and value, right? Go take somebody to lunch who's been in sales for a long time, but you can't fake this. You've got to convince yourself that nobody you've ever known or ever will know, including yourself, has ever or will ever buy anything based strictly on price. Instead, you and I and everybody you know, we buy based on value. And that's the first step toward getting past the number one reason that you suck at sales, which is you're talking about the money. You got to convince yourself of the truth. What's number two, Cameron Bailey?
Man, you got to actually. This number two did not come from me. This came from Mr. Producer. Drop this bomb on here.
Mr. Producer.
He says, Mr. Producer says,
Mr. Producer has wisdom.
He says you got to believe in your shit. You got to believe in your product. You got to believe in your service. You got to believe in what you're selling. If you don't believe it, it's going to come through, man.
So let me tell you a story about this one. Okay.
Please.
This is a good one. And I run into this a lot. We run into this with entrepreneurs that we work with, but I want to tell you a personal story I ran into. So long story, the short version of the story, what is it our buddy says? The Reader's Digest version of the story is this. Some people listen don't even know what Reader's Digest is.
No,
I just aged myself. I mean, you ever heard of Reader's Digest?
I think my grandmother used to have
one. Oh, Mr. Producer, he cut me deep. Did you hear that?
I think my grandmother used to have some Reader's Digest hanging around. My Meemaw.
Yeah, with the Sears Roebuck catalog.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. Sears just went belly up, by the way.
Because they weren't creating no value.
That's right. And that's what we're talking about here.
Getting their ass kicked.
The number one reason you suck at sales is because you're making a big deal out of price. We talked about one thing you need to do to get over it. Convince yourself of the truth. Nobody buys anything based on price. We all buy based on value. The number two thing is you got to believe in the value of your services. Now, my wife and I built our house in 2003. I don't think I told you this story. We built our house in 2003. And long story short, around this area, we got a lot of limestone, and there's a lot of, we have, like, the weather changes so much, so we have, the ground will dry up, it'll saturate, all this kind of stuff. Long story short, the one corner of my house, the brick is separating from the main part of the house, okay, to the point where, like, there's a 30-foot line where it has cracked, and the crack at one point was about an inch wide all the way up. Okay. Long story short, I had several different foundational specialists come out there. They charged me a ridiculous amount of money, and they drilled down into my garage, 30 feet until they hit bedrock and whatever they did, and put a thing under it, and then they had to go under the foundation, all this other stuff. It cost me a bunch of money. Long story short, it's got a lifetime warranty, Mr. Crabtree.
Oh.
Lifetime warranty. Okay, so that's been 5 or 6 years ago. It's separating again. So I called the people with the warranty. The guy came out there, and the first thing he says to me is,
"This ain't covered under the warranty."
And the second thing he said to me, you're right, that's exactly what he said. Second thing he said to me is, it's going to be a lot of money. We didn't talk about. He didn't give me a solution. He didn't ask me what's most important. Right? He didn't. No value whatsoever. He's talking to me about this is going to be a lot of money. How are we going to like totally completely jumps to the money and then starts talking about financing options and all these other things. He's making a big deal out of the money. We don't even have a solution yet.
No value.
We don't even have a solution.
No.
Much less value because there's no solution even presented. Right? And if you're in the service business, this is what we see all the time. You got to understand what you do in your services provides value. You've got to believe in that value. If you jump right out to the money right out of the chute, you're skipping over the most important part.
Value.
And
the challenge is, what do you do? Like, here's a good example. You're in a
you
service.
Didn't like my example?
No, your example is good, but you're in a service business. What do you call if somebody says, "Hey, what do you charge to come fix my bricks?" What would you charge to come fix my bricks? If you say,
you give them a price. If you give them a price,
you're an idiot. There's no value there. All they're going to do is hang the phone up and call the next person that fixes bricks and get a price from them. And then guess what they're going to do? They're going to go with the cheapest because you showed them no value. You created no value. So what do they justify on? Price.
Yeah, and my experience too is, listen, as a consumer, put yourself in these shoes. I mean, I don't know if what we're saying is making any sense, but if you're listening to this and you're going, yeah, theoretically that's true. But you know what? I mean, geez, everybody is putting price out there. You know what? Listen, put yourself in the consumer's shoes. Have you not ever been in a situation where you didn't see value and you made a decision based on price and then you realized you got screwed because what you thought you were getting had no value to it? I've been in that situation. I have been in that situation, frankly, with my bricks. Some other things. So we're talking about the number one reason why you suck at sales, and that is because you're making a big deal out of the money. There's 3 things you can do. Number one, we talked about, you got to convince yourself of the truth. Nobody buys anything based on price. We all buy based on value. Number 2 thing is you've got to believe in that value. Listen, if you're in a service industry and you don't believe that you bring any value to the table, then get out of that industry and go be in something else. If you don't see value in it, stop freaking doing it and go do something else. And the number 3 big thing. What is it, Mr. Bailey?
The number 3 thing is you got to make it easy for your clients, your customers, your patients to say yes.
Take advantage of the financial tools that are at your disposal, right? It doesn't matter if you're a fence company. It doesn't matter if you are an HVAC company. It doesn't matter if you are small, medium, large. It doesn't matter if you're like whatever, CPA, whatever it is that you do in your service business. There are all sorts of financial resources that can make it easy for your clients to say yes.
You've got patient financing options.
Well, you have a client, a fence company.
Yeah, fence company. And so here's the situation. Fences are expensive. Believe it or not.
It's a multi-million-dollar fence company.
Yeah, and fences cost money.
Multi-million-dollar fence company.
You ever bought a fence?
No, I haven't.
They're expensive. Yeah. So what we found was when we were working with the fence company, we found out
that
they
have value.
We found out that
fences make good neighbors.
They make good neighbors. They keep your kids in the backyard. right?
Keep your dogs from getting loose.
Keep the dogs from getting loose.
There's value.
There's value.
Tell a story,
So
man.
you find out the value from the client, and then we had to figure out a way to make it easy to say yes. Because some of these fences could be, upwards of tens of thousands of dollars, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000. So what we found was we seeked out a company that would offer a financing program for our fences. And guess what happened? Sales went through the roof.
Through the roof.
Through the roof.
Grew
like crazy.
Like crazy.
Doubled the business.
Doubled the business all because
we made it easy. We made it easy for them
the
to say
client
yes.
to say yes.
So if you're in your service business, if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to this, you're probably thinking, "Yeah, man, that's a bunch of talk." Y'all make it sound real good, but
this is huge, man. This is huge. There are companies out there that are fighting, scratching, clawing for the ability to make it easy for your clientele to accept your services. But you know what? If you're going to just sit back and not focus on these things, and somebody calls and you give them a price and you go, I don't know why nobody's buying anything here. I mean, listen, why in the world would you try to collect money from somebody when you can have the financing tools that are available that all you have to do? Look, you can be as easy to do business with as a big box electronics store. Best Buy.
When you go to Best Buy, they'll sell you the flat screen TV for
Home
$99 a month. Home Depot will finance the washing machine, the refrigerator, the stove, the sink. You can remodel your whole house and finance the whole thing at Home Depot at 0% interest.
At 0% interest.
And
those tools are available for you.
If you're an entrepreneur, they're not going to knock on your door and say, hey, heard you were looking for a finance company. No, you got to go find them. And that's what we did. We went and found a finance company that would offer
and there are
multiple options for these clients, for these fences. We had 0% interest options. We had longer term options that had interest. But on the bigger jobs, the clients, they only wanted to pay, X number of dollars a month. We could make it affordable. We made it easy for them to say yes.
Okay, so if you're listening to this, here's what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, yeah, but those financing companies, that costs money, Cameron Bailey.
Yeah.
They're going to take a percentage. Right?
They're not going to do it for free.
So, if you're here, here's what I'd say to you about.
But they're taking the risk.
Right. The number one reason you suck at sales is because you're making money a big deal. And that's a good example of making money a big deal. If you're worried about paying a finance company, get past it, man. Increase your fees. Increase your fees.
Or you got to realize, if you're worried about paying a finance company, why do you have a finance company to begin with? To increase your revenue, to increase your sales.
And that percentage that you take
it's no different than spending money on marketing. If I go out and I spend a ton of money on marketing to make
or even a small amount
to make the phone ring, and then I can't make it affordable for the client, then I'm just wasting my money. What I want to do is I want to spend money that's going to make money, and it's going to increase my sales. If I can make it easy for my clients to afford
we'll
the
give
products.
them some stats that we run into all the time. It is not so here's a really good example of what we run into. In a typical financing scenario, maybe you're spending, I don't know, 12%, to be able to offer that financing, and the increases can be 75% to your top line. 75%, 100%. In many cases, we're talking about doubling your business, and you're worried about an 11 or 12% hit. Come on, man. Your goal is to make it as easy as possible for your client to say yes. Now, rule number one is you got to convince yourself of the truth. It ain't about the price. It's about the value. Number two is you got to believe in the value that you're bringing to the table.
You got to believe that what you got is good.
And if you got both of those things handled, now you got to make it as easy as possible to say yes. And again, I'm telling you, there are businesses that we work with that literally we will double their business, 100% increase in 12 or 14 months. You know what? If you're doubling your top line, an 11%, or 12 or 10% hit on financing, is like peanuts. It's the cost of doing business.
Exactly.
And if you're worried about it, then increase your fees.
Bump your rates 5 or 10%.
But again, you're not going to be able to do that unless you're doing these other things. You got to convince yourself of the truth, and you got to believe in the value before you can make it easy as possible for your clients to say yes. And at the end of the day, that is overcoming the number one reason that we see why you suck at sales. You got to get past dollars. And that's what's going to have you be successful.
And that's what we want for you. We want you to be successful. We want you to have the lifestyle that you're looking for as an entrepreneur. If you're going to take the risk and be an entrepreneur and take the stress, the pain, the anguish, you might as well be rewarded for it, right?
Yeah, and this is going to be a series. I mean, we'll talk to you about the number 2 reason and 3 reason down the road. But this is the number 1 reason that we want to bring to you of why you suck at sales. Get past it, man. Convince yourself of the truth. It's not about dollars. It's about value. Believe in the value of the services that you provide and make it as easy as possible for your clients to say yes by taking advantage of the financial tools that are out there. That's why we come to you, bringing you best strategies to help you grow your business. We come to you every single week with all of these strategies that can help you have happier clients,
better results,
making more money,
and enjoying the ride.
Thank you for joining us. This has been Growth Profits right outside Nashville, Tennessee. You can find us at thecrabtreegroup.com. If you like what it is we're saying, please share these videos.
Our podcast is on iTunes and on Google Play.
And everywhere that you like to enjoy your podcasts. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week on Growth Profits. Have a great week.